The alien's head snapped back before the sound reached the crowd. 1 second, Commander Vale stood beside Warlord Kareth Sil, preaching subjugation. The next, his skull split like a melon, violet ichor misting over polished obsidian armor. Screams followed. The feed cut to static. A grainy resistance logo flickered briefly on every occupied EarthNet channel. 3 weeks earlier, snow fell over what remained of Colorado. Blackened pine stumps jutted like ribs from frozen soil. On a hill overlooking the ruins of Greystone, a former mining town swallowed by war, Mira Thorne lay motionless under a sheet of tattered mesh, blended perfectly with the scorched rock and dry moss. She hadn't moved in hours. Through her scope, a pair of alien drones hovered across the broken rooftops. Their sensor nodes pulsed blue as they scanned for heat signatures. One paused above a rusted sedan. Mira adjusted her breath. Not her aim, her breath. The rifle beneath her shoulder was custom, bolt action, carbon fiber stock, scope reinforced with scavenged Dominion crystal lenses. Primitive by Dominion standards. But she'd put 13 commanders in the dirt with it. None saw it coming. The drone pulsed red, then resumed patrol. Mira blinked once, slow. Her pulse never spiked. Her heartbeat had learned silence. The mission brief was simple. Kill Kareth Sil. He was the face of Dominion authority in the Western Hemisphere. An arrogant warlord with delusions of godhood, and a face plastered across every subjugated wall. He traveled in a fortress that floated above the landscape, protected by shifting shields, watched by swarms of drones and elite guards. Untouchable. Until now. Mira disassembled her rifle with precise efficiency. Barrel, bolt, scope, each wrapped in oiled cloth and tucked into a dull gray satchel. She slid backward, inch by inch, belly scraping the icy ground, breast shallow. She didn't speak. No one nearby to hear her, and the snow carried voices too far. Once inside the tree line, she rose and moved like smoke, quiet, quick, untraceable. She crossed the valley by foot, staying beneath overhangs, avoiding sky gliders and patrols. 2 days passed. She slept once, inside a collapsed barn buried in ash. Wind keened through shattered rafters. She dreamed of her daughter's laugh, faint, brief, and woke with fingers clenched tight around her rifle's grip. On the 4th day, she reached the rendezvous point, a collapsed radio tower outside Greystone, buried halfway in snowdrift. Twisted steel and frostbitten cables marked the edge of occupied territory. A voice crackled through her comms, faint beneath static. "You're late, Ghost." She said nothing. A shape emerged from the broken concrete beneath the tower. A kid, barely 20, thin, dark-eyed, with a mess of scavenged Dominion tech strapped to his back. "Name's Jace. I'm your eye," he said, offering a nod. "The old bat in command figured you need someone who knows how their sensors think." Mira just walked past him into the ruin. Inside, gear was stashed behind crates, ammo, maps, an uplink pad. "I've been tracking the fortress path," Jace continued. "Zol's platform passes through Greystone every 7 cycles. Word is, tomorrow night they stop for a refuel draw." She glanced at him. "Shield grid? Still rotates. Found a 10-second blind spot near the uplink tower. Not enough. 5 if we drop a decoy. Longer if you're lucky." "Luck." Mira didn't believe in it. But she nodded once. "Show me the vantage." They climbed a ridge behind the ruins. Jace kept talking, filling silence with light chatter. She didn't mind. Noise that wasn't screaming or gunfire was almost welcome. "So, they say you've been doing this since the fall?" he asked. "Since before," she said. She adjusted her scope. Trees blocked one line of sight. She'd need to clear it. Quietly. "What made you pick up a rifle?" She didn't answer. He didn't ask again. That night, Mira cleaned her rifle in silence. The only light came from a filtered glow stick, dim orange. She unwrapped the bolt and slid it free. Her fingers paused on the stock. Etched into the blackened wood was a child's drawing. A sun. 2 stick figures. "Mom," scrawled beneath in crooked lines. She stared for 3 heartbeats. Then reassembled the rifle and set it down. Jace sat nearby, reconfiguring signal dampeners. Was that hers? She nodded. They get her? First strike. He looked down. My brother, they took his brain. Wired it into one of those machine things. I saw him last week. Didn't recognize me. Didn't blink. She said nothing. After a moment, he added softly, I want to make them feel it. Mira locked the bolt. Then stay alive. The next morning, a pair of alien gliders buzzed overhead, scanning the treetops. Mira froze mid-step, rifle aimed at the sky. Jace pressed himself against a boulder. The drones passed. She relaxed, barely. Fortress ETA? By nightfall. They spent the day wiring a decoy relay to an old Dominion signal array. When the fortress arrived, the relay would mimic a high-value transmission. If it worked, the drone net would pivot. If not, she'd still have one shot. As dusk bled into night, a low hum trembled through the trees. Lights rose over the far ridge. Mira lay prone beside Jace, staring through her scope. Then it appeared. The fortress was colossal. A floating fortress the size of a city block, levitating on grav turbines, armored in overlapping plates, humming with power. Beneath it, Dominion troops marched with mechanized precision. At its apex, a tower jutted like a blade, adorned with glowing alien script. Jace exhaled. There he is. Middle platform. Mira saw him, Kareth Zul. Cloaked in ceremonial armor, hands raised as he addressed the troops. 10 seconds, Jace whispered. Shield shift in 3, 2. Mira steadied her breath. Then something shifted in her periphery. A flash. A shadow. A shape moved too fast. She rolled instinctively, just as a Dominion scout decloaked beside them, plasma blade crackling. Jace screamed. Too late. The blade stabbed through his chest. Myra's knife flashed upward, piercing the scout's throat before he could retract. His blood hissed on her skin. She held him until he stopped twitching, then dropped his body beside Jace. The kid gasped, trying to speak. She knelt beside him, eyes hard. He smiled. Get him! Mira! She closed his eyes. Then crawled back to her rifle. Zul was still speaking. Tomorrow, he would die. The body cooled fast in the mountain wind. Jace's blood soaked into snow, turning it the color of rust. Mira didn't look away. She sat beside him in silence, her hands still clutching the scout's knife. Steam drifted from his lips, last breath gone. She pulled the blade from his chest with a clean motion. She couldn't bury him. No time. No shovel. No peace. Instead, she tore the Dominion lens rig from his pack, slipped it into her own, and snapped the last image his scope recorded. Kareth Zul standing tall on the command deck, preaching glory to his soldiers. A timestamp. Shield timing. Platform position. The final puzzle piece. She exhaled through her teeth. The air was sharp. Everything else was sharper. She moved by moonlight. Down the ridge, across the scarred slope where Dominion haulers had strip-mined the old forest. The terrain bore their fingerprints, perfectly symmetrical, geometrically unnatural. Where roots once grew, alloy drilling towers hummed. They'd cracked the earth open like a shell, looking for something buried. They never explained. Aliens didn't explain. Mira didn't care. Zul's fortress still hovered in the valley below. The command deck orbited slowly along its top hull like a crown, rotating on a predictable pattern. She'd studied its movement for days. Jace had mapped it perfectly. She found a ridge 900 meters out, with direct line of sight. Snow powdered her jacket. She didn't shake it off. Let it cover her. Make her invisible. She set down the rifle, unfolded the bipod, chambered the round. Only one. Wind drifted through the valley in long, lazy waves. Mira adjusted the dope in her scope. She dialed for windage, factored spin drift. The air at this altitude moved in unpredictable ways, and Dominion scanners distorted electromagnetic readings, She had to rely on instinct, training, and silence. She licked a finger, held it up. Cold wind from the northeast. Measured. Through her scope, Zul emerged again. He stood on the high deck, wrapped in ceremonial armor trimmed in iridescent violet. Behind him, alien soldiers stood in perfect lines. A war hymn echoed in some language she didn't know. It didn't matter. He raised one arm and spoke. You believed your planet could defy fate. That you were more than the dirt you crawled from. We gave you the gift of surrender. You chose to resist. The soldiers pounded their chests once. The chorus rumbled across the ridge. Mira exhaled slowly. Her crosshairs tracked just behind his eye cluster. Center mass wouldn't work. His armor could deflect anything less than a tank round. But the cluster, that was soft. Biological. Vulnerable. She'd only get one window. The shield cycle rotated every 32 seconds, leaving a 10-second blind spot. She could shoot only when that shimmered out. Timing was everything. She heard Jace's voice in memory. 5 seconds if we drop a decoy. Longer if you're lucky. No decoy now. Just precision. She took a breath. Held. Watched the shimmer drop for half a beat. The deck cleared. Crosshairs aligned. Her fingers slid onto the trigger. And then the drone came. A low thrum, faint but rising. She twisted without thinking, flattening herself. A Dominion recon unit, smaller than a hovercraft but packed with AI, swept the ridge. Blue lights flickered beneath its shell. It scanned in slow arcs. Too close. She didn't move. Not yet. One twitch, and the shot would be lost. The drone paused overhead. Blue lights turned amber. It had sensed something. Not precise, but wrong. Mira flicked her left thumb against the rifle's primer trigger. A small static pulse burst from her pack. The relay Jace had programmed. Fake signature, one-time use. The drone swiveled instantly and shot off toward the decoy point in a blur of motion. Now. She rolled back into position. Zul still stood on the deck, hands raised. The shimmer flickered. Blind spot. She breathed out, whispered under it. For the kid. And fired. The rifle cracked like thunder. Muzzle flash bloomed in the dark. The bullet, a depleted uranium spike wrapped in reactive casing, sliced through air like a ghost. It traveled 927 meters in under half a second. It struck Zul just beneath his central eye. The top of his skull exploded backward in a spray of alien gore. His body collapsed mid-sentence. The troops around him broke formation, first in confusion, then in chaos. Sirens screamed from the fortress. Mira didn't wait. She yanked the bolt, ejected the casing, disassembled the rifle in practice sequence. Clamped the parts into her bag. Ripped the ghillie sheet free. And ran. She cut downslope into the ravine, boots crunching frozen brush. Above her, drone alarms howled, scanning in broad blue cones. Her path was mapped, a cave 2 clicks east, then a sharp drop into the canyon river. Risky, but fast. Behind her, alien anti-infantry beams began slicing through the forest, trees catching fire in bursts of white flame. She didn't look back. By the time she reached the cave mouth, her lungs burned. She ducked into the narrow rock tunnel, slid sideways through the fissure, and emerged above the river gorge. The water roared below, fast, icy, and deadly. No time to hesitate. She clipped a line to the metal ring anchored in the rock, one Jace had placed days before, and leapt. The harness jerked tight, swung her out wide. Halfway down, she unclipped, dropped the rest of the way, and hit the river hard. Cold slammed into her like a punch to the chest. She surfaced once for air, then let the current drag her beneath the rocks. Hours later, she clawed her way to shore miles downstream, soaked, coughing, exhausted. One knee gave out. She crawled into the shelter of a half-buried storm drain and pulled her thermal blanket over her shoulders. She pulled out the lens rig. The recording was intact. She rewound to the exact frame. Zul's head bursting open, the body collapsing like a rag doll, soldiers scattering. She stared at it for a long time. No joy. No satisfaction. Just the work. Done. Her voice, hoarse, cracked the silence. That's for all of us. She let herself close her eyes. Only for a moment. The Dominion fortress didn't move for 6 hours after the shot. Satellites caught the image first. Zul's body slumped over the edge of the platform, crimson blood steaming against alloy. Then came the second feed chaos. Troops scrambled, shields flickered, internal comms pulsed erratically. The AI command net buckled. Across Earth's remaining resistance cells, disbelief turned to awe. Then action. Riots flared in Cairo. A weapons cache exploded in Singapore. 500 humans broke out of a Dominion processing camp in Montana, chanting the same phrase over and over. She killed a god. Mira moved before the sun rose. Her leg throbbed from the river impact. Bruised, not broken. She wrapped it tight and walked with a limp, teeth clenched. Pain meant she was still breathing. She followed an old drainage line south, hidden beneath frost-choked scrub and shattered roadbeds. After 10 kilometers, she reached the shelter, a concrete wedge half buried in earth, camouflaged beneath sheet metal debris and frost cloth. A sentry spotted her and gave the all-clear. A girl, 15 maybe, lowered her rifle with wide eyes. "You're her," she whispered. "The sniper." Mira didn't answer. She just walked inside. Inside the bunker, heat and noise hit her like a wave. Resistance fighters huddled around terminals, sharing feeds, coordinating. There were no uniforms. Just layers, scars, weapons held too tightly. A medic pulled her aside, checked her ribs, eyes, leg. "You're lucky," he muttered. "Any deeper, the water would have cracked your spine." "I've had worse," she said. He looked at her with something close to respect. "Not many make it out alone." "I didn't." Her voice dropped flat. "Kid named Jay's helped me. He's gone." The medic nodded, said nothing more. They all lost someone. Later, in the comms room, Mira uploaded the lens feed. The commander, a sharp-eyed woman in a patched jacket, watched the footage play back, Zul's speech, the shot, the kill. They all watched in silence. When it ended, no one spoke. The commander turned to Mira. "They're scared. Not just the grunts. Their high command went dark. No directives in 4 hours." Mira stood at ease, still damp. "That's your window. Hit them now." "We are. All across the board. Your shot lit the match." Myra's eyes didn't change. "Then make it burn." That night, someone placed a steaming bowl of stew in front of her. She sat alone at a corner table, scraping through it mechanically. A small shadow appeared beside her. The same girl from the entrance. She slid into the seat across. "They said you'd be gone already?" Mira didn't look up. "I leave at dawn. I heard what you did." The girl's voice was hushed. "They said Zul was immortal. They said no one could even scratch him." Mira stared into her bowl. "He bled like the rest." The girl leaned forward. "Did he see it coming?" "No." A pause. Then, "Were you afraid?" Mira met her eyes, finally. There was no hardness in the look, just a steady weight. "Yes." The girl looked stunned. "But you did it anyway. That's what fear is for." They sat in silence. Then the girl asked, "Can you show me how to shoot?" Mira didn't answer. She stood, slung her pack over her shoulder. At the door, she paused. "Start with breathing," she said without turning back. "Everything else follows." 2 days passed. Dominion troop movements slowed. Their command channels pulsed in fractured bursts. The fortress still hadn't lifted off. Whatever replacements they had, none wore Zul's insignia. Mira moved east under a moonless sky. No escort. No ceremony. Just her pack, her rifle, her purpose. She walked for hours, through broken towns and empty roads where wild brush reclaimed concrete. No drones buzzed above. Even the skies were still. When she reached the ridgeline above Pine Barrow Outpost, she paused. Frost clung to her coat. Her fingers ached. She opened her satchel and pulled out a small cloth-wrapped item. Jace's lens rig. She found a bare patch of dirt, knelt, and dug with her hands. A shallow grave. Just enough to hold the device. She placed it inside, added a flat stone. No words. Just silence. Then she rose and kept walking. Halfway to the extraction point, her comms buzzed with a tight beam ping. Encrypted signal. High clearance. New mission file received. Priority Alpha 1. She sat on a collapsed highway divider and opened it. A single image appeared, a Dominion elder strategist. Older than Zul. Face lined with biomechanical implants. Location, New Santiago District, South America. Codenamed Architect. Target classification, Command Level Nexus. Security, Maximum. Mobility, Ground-based transport. Schedule, relocation in 96 hours. Below the data, one line of text. If one god can fall, why not two? Mira stared at the image for a long time. Then tapped accept. Light broke over the horizon as she began her descent south. Wind whispered through dead trees. Somewhere above, in a different world, the stars still watched. No one walked beside her. No radio team. No medals. Just the quiet, the cold, and the weight of the next bullet. She pulled her rifle close, resting it against her shoulder. Her fingertips brushed the carving along its stock. The sun, the stick figures. The word, Mom. She smiled barely. And kept walking.